What's going on, Packers fans? Aaron Nagler here, joined by Andy Herman of the Pack-A-Day podcast, ready to break down a very unfortunate afternoon out in Denver for the Green Bay Packers. Andy, bit of time now to reflect. Obviously, the Butcher Bill is the headline coming out of this game with all of the injuries, let alone the loss to the Broncos. How are you feeling now, at least almost a day separated from the actual event?
Maybe it's just because I've been watching too much Stranger Things lately, but I feel like I'm living in the upside down. What was right a couple days ago feels very wrong at the moment. And as you know, I was on a journey back to Green Bay as the entire game. And it was
journey is underlined, italicized, and in neon. Yeah, no doubt.
Yes. But I was almost like, I have like markers on the highway of like, oh my God, this team's like, they look amazing. They're in Denver. They've got a 23-14 lead or whatever it was. And they just got the ball back. And there's go Pack.
We're going to the Super Bowl.
We're going to the Super Bowl. And it's like, oh, it just threw a pick and Christian Watson's down hurt. It's like, oh, the Broncos just scored a touchdown as another mile marker down the road. Then a little bit later, about 15 miles down, it's like, oh, Xavier McKinney just dropped a pick. Oh, Micah Parsons tore an ACL. Oh, Denver just took the lead. And it's just, I'm going on this like journey. Obviously, we all went through it together as Packers fans, but I almost have like mile markers of exactly where things went wrong for the Green Bay Packers. It was as devastating and deflating of, certainly from an injury standpoint, but just a game that they had every opportunity to win. You could see the air go out of the balloon when Watson got hurt, and then it did even more, whatever was left once Micah got hurt. It was just one of those days, and it sucked all the way around.
It really did. Let's start with the Micah injury. Obviously, confirmed now by multiple reports, and LaFleur kind of alluding to the fact that he is indeed done for the season. He will not be back. Parsons himself tweeting out a message of "I'll be back," which you would hope to hear from him. And you look forward now to these next 3 games starting Sunday in Chicago. Is it as simple as, okay, Jeff Hafley, you have to kind of dust off the 2024 playbook? I mean, it's hard to see a way forward for this team as they have been playing on defense. A lot of 4-man rushes, a lot of, on the 3rd and long, standing Micah up. We saw a little bit of that with Rashawn last season. But I got to think there's going to be, maybe not like throw the kitchen sink at teams, but there'd be a revisiting of their defensive structure after this injury.
Well, a 2024 playbook that now doesn't have Kenny Clark, Devontae Wyatt, TJ Slayton on the interior of that defensive line. Evan Williams probably out for a couple weeks, or at least probably a week at safety. And so that's going to change the calculus of some of that as well. I think you have to start with, all right, where are your strengths? You still, even if Williams is out, you still feel really good about Bullard and McKinney at safety. So you can, I think you're probably going to have to live a little bit more in a single high world with Xavier McKinney playing deep, but that's going to expose some of your maybe one-on-ones with the corners, which didn't exactly go great this past weekend, which you don't feel thrilled about. Still feel really good about Cooper and Quay, the way that they're playing on the second level. I thought Cooper, again, at least at first glance, had a really good game this past game and continued to make plays. And so how, last year we saw a lot of getting Cooper and Quay involved, double A gap blitzes, stunts between the two. I think you're going to see a lot more of that on some obvious passing situations. And then you're going to probably have to just remake any sort of 4-man rush to try to figure out, are you collapsing a pocket more than trying to get one guy home, trying to make it so that there's not escape lanes, but you don't have that 1A guy, as Ken Ingalls pointed out. Rashawn doesn't have a sack or a tackle for loss in his last 7 games combined. Enagbari's had flashes, but it's obviously no Micah Parsons. It's going to have to be by committee. But we saw even in the second half of that game, the committee approach didn't exactly work great. So it's going to be a lot of heavy lifting on Jeff Hafley, and guys are going to have to find a way to step up.
And the thing is, you just mentioned the secondary. McKinney, I thought, had a strong game overall, but he did drop 2 interceptions, one in particular, which really could have swung things prior to the Parsons injury.
Yeah.
And then you mentioned Bullard, who I thought that's probably his poorest performance, I would say, on the season, or at least since early in the season. He's been playing very well prior to this game, but he had major issues in this one. And then you look on the perimeter, both Nixon and Valentine had rough moments. Nixon getting beat on an out and up, really cleanly.
Yeah.
And then the Valentine thing is so frustrating because he came so close to 2 really big game-changing plays, allows completions on both. One of them ruptures for a significant gain. You talk about guys who are going to have to dial in because they are probably going to be expected to hold up a little bit more given the lack of a promising 4-man rush. Those guys are going to be challenged, I suspect, probably by Hafley and LaFleur to up their game because, again, they were close at times against the Broncos, but close doesn't mean a whole lot, and they're going to have to be a lot better.
They're going to have to cover longer, too. They're going to get more or like one-on-one situations, I should say, because you're going to probably have to bring pressure to try to generate some of that pressure.
Yeah.
I'm also interested, and I'd love to hear your thoughts. And maybe this week it doesn't matter quite as much because you're probably going to play a lot of 3 linebacker sets again. But are you, with Evan Williams out, assuming that it is a week or two, are you more just Hobbs in the slot and Bullard to safety? Do you want to keep Bullard in the slot in that primary role and play Zane or Catan at that other safety spot? Like they have a ton of options. They could get Keyshawn in the slot. They could we've even seen a little bit of Oladapo in the slot. Like there are some unique things that they can do. I'm interested to see how Hafley handles that. Like I said, this week, I think it's a lot of 3 linebacker and probably Bullard and McKinney at safety together with Valentine and Nixon on the outside. But I'm very interested, and I don't think there's a perfect combo. And losing Evan too, even if it's for a week or two, you're not going to go very far down the list of players who are having a huge impact on the defense after Micah Parsons to get to Evan Williams' name. Even if it's for a week or two, his loss is pretty significant as well.
No doubt. And I do think, my gut reaction when you're asking that question is, they'll put Zane Anderson back there. They did that yesterday. They did it last year prior to his getting hurt there in Minnesota. But we've also seen this year a couple of times where they've run Bullard at safety across from McKinney, right? As the traditional kind of strong safety. It wouldn't surprise me if they went that route and maybe played Hobbs some in the slot. Although Hobbs was dinged up in that game yesterday as well. That's kind of the one guy I haven't seen a real update on. But I do agree they have options. And I do think it will be somewhat opponent specific. Like you're saying, like against the Bears, I suspect you'll see a bunch of 3 linebacker sets, McKinney and company, but there's no doubt that I think they're going to have to mix it up and try to play with the opposing quarterback a little bit, pre-snap looks. What are you showing? What are you actually presenting post-snap? And they've at least got lots of practice with that, right? Like that's not alien to this group. So, yeah, I do think that is going to be a curious call. I would suspect they probably put Zane Anderson back there, but we'll see. Then you look at the play along the interior. It's interesting because, so much has been made of the loss of Devontae Wyatt for good reason, but I actually think Riley held up pretty well yesterday.
Yep.
He wasn't a world beater, but you didn't expect him to be. And they still haven't seen the Seattle defensive tackle that they picked up. Hannah. Yeah. So who knows? That might help kind of maybe possibly solidify some stuff on early downs if you want to go heavy against a team that likes to run the ball. The Bears want to, so I suspect that's a real possibility. But, man, again, it all comes back to if you do get a team into 3rd and long, as they did a couple times yesterday. Bo Nix is not Caleb Williams when it comes to his mobility. He's still a very good quarterback when it comes to evading pressure, getting outside the pocket, making plays, which we saw him do a couple of times. But Caleb Williams, we already saw that a couple weeks ago. Outside the pocket, he is going to be a major issue. To me, that's what more than anything is going to be about the construction of this defense, especially this week, is about not letting them get outside the pocket, not letting Williams, especially to his right, where we saw again against the Browns this past week. He had a number of plays where he just makes stuff happen outside. Some of this, I think, is going to have to be about discipline and rush lanes and trying to keep contained. And again, you're talking about Rashawn Gary, Nick Barry, Lucas Van Ness, whoever. Hasn't been their strong suit so far this year. Like that could be an issue.
It is not. So, that's the other thing too, is you're having to rob Peter to pay Paul in some way, shape, or form, right? So if you're bringing additional pressure, you're going to have less guys in coverage. If you're keeping more guys in coverage, you're just not going to have that pass rush without Micah Parsons. If you're keeping him in the pocket, okay, but then he's going to have more time theoretically in the pocket. Yeah. So, are you comfortable if you're going to, kind of hem him in the pocket, make him beat you from the pocket? Are you comfortable with your defensive backs covering for an extended period of time? That hasn't necessarily gone great. They brought pressure, those one-on-ones outside with Nixon and Valentine. That hasn't exactly gone great. You don't just want to let Caleb Williams roam free and get to the outside of the pocket. That's not going to end great. So I know already, like the theme is, oh, well, Jeff Hafley's got to do this scheme thing or that scheme thing. It's like there's a downside to pretty much everything. And if all of a sudden you start playing the pass more, the Bears will run the ball all over you as well. It's a very complicated Rubik's Cube to try to figure out right now on defense. And again, it's going to be, or the onus is going to be on the players and guys like Rashawn Gary, LVN, Carl Brooks, those guys up front to step up in a pretty significant way, and Igbari, et cetera. And guys in the back end are going to have to cover like their life depended on it, because it's just going to be a different ball game without Mike out there. But I will say this, a week before the season, granted, I know you had Kenny Clark and Devontae Wyatt at that point in time, but a week before the season, I still expected this to be one hell of a Packers team and have every opportunity to go and make a bunch of noise in the playoffs. And yeah, it sucks that you don't have Micah amongst some very other important players like Tucker Kraft as well, but you still got to find a way to make that work. And we'll see if Green Bay can respond to adversity. I thought your comment was, totally appropriate. Is some of my favorite moments as well as a Packers fan is when, there's there's no expectation, or when they've had to overcome adversity. Them out,
right? Yes. Like so much of yesterday was spent. And like I said in the chat, I understand it. I totally get it. But so much of the instant reaction is, oh, the season's over. Again, I understand that reaction, but man, that's why we watch, right? And that's what I love about the Packers, is there are so many times throughout my kind of fandom, watching them throughout the years, where everyone did have that idea, like it's over, right? Season's done. Hell, I remember lots of people thinking that in 2010 after Rodgers goes down in Detroit. They don't score in the first half. He can't play in that Patriots game the next week. And everyone's like, oh, the season's done. And they go on and win the Super Bowl. And I'm not saying that's what's going to happen. I'm just saying I don't know what's going to happen. And I'm excited to find out, right? Because of the so many different possibilities that we're talking about just here on the defensive side of the football.
And the coolest sports stories are the ones that start exactly like this. And again, I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm not saying I expect it to happen. But if you do overcome this adversity and find a way to win, it's a much better story and journey than it even would have been had you had Tucker Kraft and Micah Parsons. So it's not advantageous. I wouldn't wish it upon anyone. I'm not glad that this happened. Micah's not in a better place. None of that stuff is real at the moment.
True. But true.
We'll just one game at a time. Listen, we get 17 of these guaranteed every single year. That's it. And we get 17. We get 3 more. And it's Packers Bears this week, primetime game in Chicago. If nothing else, I want to beat the hell out of the Chicago Bears. And I'm looking at that game first, and I want to find a way to beat Chicago in Chicago. Let's do that first and figure out the rest as the time goes on.
Absolutely. And then let's flip it over to the offensive side of the ball, where, man, I got to admit, up until Watson goes down in that game, and as you said, they were in control, man. They were 2 scores up. They get the ball back. They just forced a punt, one of, I think, 2 that they forced all day, but they force a punt, and they've got the ball 1st and 10, and they take that shot. And Watson is open. He's got to step on the guy, right? He's got to step on a great corner. And Love obviously shoots it out of a cannon, but it is a tad underthrown. Phenomenal play by Surtain. And then all hell breaks loose on my timeline, trying to assign blame, trying to say this or that, or definitively say that this is the thing that is going to ruin everything or has ruined everything, etc. Man, look, they had a good play dialed up. Jordan liked the read, as he said in the postgame. He took his shot, couldn't really step into it probably as much as he'd like to, because the guy on Banks gets off of him. He really kind of interrupts his kind of forward momentum. And it sucks, man. It absolutely, everything that transpired after that play sucks. But I don't blame LaFleur for the play call, although I would have preferred possessing the ball. I said on Watch Party, like, okay, here we go. Big, long 7-minute drive, just the dagger right into the Broncos and let's go home. That's what I had expected. Instead, LaFleur dials up a shot play. And again, Jordan likes the read, so he takes the shot. Now, he's got other options on that play. Jacobs is sitting there 5 yards in front of him, wide open for a check down. But, again, he likes the shot, so he takes it, and all hell breaks loose. I say all this to say that's nobody's fault. Like, that's not this is that person's like 1,000,000,000%. They're the reason all this bad stuff happened. They're the reason they lost the game. It's one play. Jordan liked the read, couldn't quite get enough on the ball. If anything, I would blame the breakdown in protection before I blame the play call or the quarterback. But all in all, It's a really unfortunate moment. But how often have we heard Packers fans grumbling about Matt LaFleur being conservative? He takes a shot, it doesn't work out, and now I hear so many Packers fans grumbling about him being aggressive. I mean, you talk about not being able to win.
It's almost like the result is the only thing that matters, right? Like that's what we're always going to talk about, for better or worse. I'm more on the other side. I love the shot play. I would have done the same. I love the idea. Now, if I probably calculate maybe that if Surtain's in coverage, then that plays into my calculus, and maybe I'm like, all right, maybe the check down's okay.
Check down's all right.
Scenario, yeah. But that's an unbelievable play by Surtain. But the one thing I really want to hammer home after that is, if that's the worst play call in the history of the world, and it's just everyone knew it was the dumbest play call and everything like that, right? It's a 9-point lead, 1st and 10 Denver at their own 29-yard line after that. Mm-hmm. And Green Bay, if you would have told Matt LaFleur or any Packers fan, hey, you're going to be up by 9 points, Denver's going to have the ball 1st and 10 on their own 29 with about 11 minutes left in the game, would you sign up for that, scenario? Hell yes. Like, even regardless of that,
still a lot of football to play, right?
And you might say, well, what about the Watson? Well, you're not planning on Watson getting hurt in the play, and now we know he's day to day, or potentially maybe week to week. This week, he might have an opportunity to play this week. That play, yes. But if you would have ran the ball 3 times there and got stuffed and punted the ball away, I'm not sure that you get them in better field position than down at the 29 anyway. So yes, that was a very unfortunate play, and it definitely felt like the play that was the first domino that led to the ultimate destruction of the 2025 Green Bay Packers. I say that in jest, but yes, I have no issue with the play call. And even if it was the worst play call of all time, you are in a very advantageous position at that point in time. Your defense has to respond, get off the field, get the ball back, hold them to a field goal, something. They didn't. And that's where things again started to spiral from there.
What did you make of the call of having Kennard come in at right tackle once Zach Tom went down? Because I thought, especially because he comes in late in the first half, right? And I thought, on balance, for the remainder of the half, he fared well. I think he had some rough moments in the second half, but overall, most of the rough moments were after the Broncos had swung the score and were starting to kind of eat up front and were able to kind of pin their ears back. But I thought he at least battled, and I don't feel completely like mortified at the idea if he's your starting right tackle on Saturday night in Chicago. And I think with a week of game planning, working to, whatever strengths and weaknesses you might have along the line, that's something at least he can come in and give you some quality minutes and get you through a game, which is what you're supposed to do as a backup.
Yeah, there's a couple ways of looking at this. For Chicago, their Achilles heel is really kind of their pass rush. Montez Sweat's pretty good, but you can chip him and help out on him if you need to. Yep. You're not super afraid of Austin Booker. So if there's a game where you're going to maybe miss a Zach Tom, this could be one where you could potentially get by, especially with the way that Kennard plays. The flip side of that would be, now if all of a sudden Green Bay has a weak point and Chicago can get home with their pass rush, now it's a big issue. So it's going to be paramount that Kennard does come up with a good enough game, assuming he's the starter at right tackle, to really make sure that Chicago does not have an area where they can consistently get to Jordan in that game. The other thing I'll say is it does definitely, or at least potentially, affect that 6 offensive lineman set.
Right.
So you have some options now of who is that? Do you bring Brant Banks off the practice squad, and does he become that extra offensive lineman? Do you use Jordan Morgan as the extra offensive lineman? I think that's the other interesting aspect of this. I floated the idea. Josh Wiley went out in this game as well. Mercedes is on the practice squad for Denver. He's out of elevations. I don't know if you want to commit the full 3 weeks to him, which is what you have to do if you sign somebody off of a practice squad, of course. But somebody who knows the offense, who's basically like a 6th offensive lineman in and of himself, that could be an option for Green Bay too. But if Zach's out and Kennard's playing right tackle, I do think they need to figure out what they can do to add that wrinkle back, because I do think it's an important wrinkle for them.
You talking about Mercedes Lewis? They're going to pull up Dabney from the practice squad and on they go. That's the Packer way. But looking further down the offensive line, I got to admit, man, for the last kind of 2-3 weeks, I've been talking about how the interior of the offensive line has really kind of solidified itself, really helped kind of make the offense go. The engine has almost kind of looked like it had been fixed. Really felt like that all came crashing back down to earth yesterday. I thought Banks played poorly. I thought Belton had a really tough game. I thought Sean Ryan had some nice moments, but overall, that trio, they could not hold up front. There were 2 or 3 plays where you thought, okay, it looks like they're kind of starting to gel in this game. But man, it was rough. The nicest play I thought was Jacobs' big touchdown run. Like, that's perfectly blocked. But outside of that play, it was just pick a guy and he's getting beat and he's getting kind of pressured into Jordan Love's lap. That was, I mean, the Denver defense is, as advertised, so you do have to tip your cap. But man, I was hoping for a little bit more cohesion up front from that trio.
It would have been nice. I still think, Micah, no Micah, whatever happens with an injury standpoint from here on out, the offensive line to me was still my biggest concern going into that game of can they make it through a big playoff run? I thought once, when Matt was kind of keeping Denver off balance early in the game, they were going with some play action looks and things like that. And he kind of gave them that opportunity of, just keeping the defense for Denver off balance. They looked fine. They could hold up in that situation. Yep. But man, in that second half, partly again due to Zach Tom being out, which should be noted. But as soon as you were in obvious pass situations, holy hell. And that might be the best defensive front they face all season long.
Oh, yeah, I mean, it will be. No question.
Yeah, for sure.
No
so
question.
That doesn't help anything either. But you could just tell they were completely overwhelmed. And even with Jordan and his superpower of being able to, back up and backpedal and throw off his back foot, it just didn't matter. And if he needed to step up anywhere, he had nowhere to go. And it was an overwhelming breakdown again from multiple spots. So I still have concern, both short-term and long-term, about that group. Again, if you get Zach Tom back sooner rather than later, that certainly helps a ton. But on the interior, yeah, there's still some serious questions there.
And of course, as we mentioned earlier, Watson went down. Everyone saw it. And the report is that he could potentially play Saturday. I'm not holding my breath on that. But, yeah. I mean, hopefully he's back sooner rather than later. Going to be very interesting to see if Matthew Golden finally gets at least an opportunity to contribute more. You saw a couple targets yesterday, came up big on a couple of them. Jaden Reed starting to get a little bit more involved. Obviously, Romeo Doubs had a couple of nice catches, but man, this is a group that without Christian Watson has looked pretty pedestrian at times earlier this season. Hopefully getting Reed back helps in that regard. But to me, I'm just, how do you not get at least some kind of package and series of plays and like down and distances where you are targeting Golden specifically? I mean, the catch up the right sideline is phenomenal in the slot
Big
fade.
time.
I mean, the kid's got the hands. We're coming down the stretch here. He should know the offense. Like, it's time to get him involved earnestly and like with purpose, I would think.
Players, not plays in this one.
Yes.
I'm spamming Golden. I'm spamming Jacobs, and I'm spamming Jaden Reed in this. Assuming again Christian can't go. Even if Christian can go, you got to think he's somewhat limited, or maybe not quite himself. So yeah, Reed, Golden, Jacobs are the three that I feel like I've got to figure out a way to get the ball in their hands as much as possible. Mix in a Musgrave, mix in a Dobbs, mix in some of that stuff, a Wicks, etc. But I want those three being the engines of the offense, and if I can do that, I feel pretty good about my chances. I'm not even without Watson. I'm less maybe enthused about no Zach Tom, but like, I still expect this offense with Jordan and Matt to pretty much go out almost every week and score 24, 26, 28 points, somewhere in that range, and probably have opportunities to put up 30 some if they just execute the way that they're, capable of executing. So I don't have a ton of trepidation about the offense, but the flip side of that is if the defense, like we talked about earlier, is giving up a lot of points and now Green Bay has to match and the other team is in advantageous, pass rush situations, that's where I get a little bit more concerned.
And, Andy, there are often times when I'm watching the Green Bay Packers and something occurs on the football field or within the sphere of the game that makes me think of you and these chats that we have every Monday. And I will tell you, nothing has made me think of you quicker than the shot of Rich Bisaccia on the sideline after Wilson muffs the return and then brings it out and gets tackled at the 14. And they cut to Bisaccia on the sideline, and he's got his hands on his knees and he just lowers his head. And you just can't believe it. And I thought that's probably exactly what Andy looks like right now hearing this, because I assume, or were you watching it in the car?
Yeah, I was watching the car. I was watching the car on my phone, not driving, just to be clear.
No, of course.
Not driving at the same time. No. But yeah, the fighting Rich Bisaccias have another epic moment in there. in their 2025 campaign.
Oh man,
you had a.
Look, I know Wilson was ill too. I like people. I don't know if you saw the tweet. He's like, I'm sick as a dog, and you motherfuckers are like saying shit, whatever. Like, I get he was ill, but it is, yes, just another in a catalog of mistakes. By at a moment, by the way, where end of the first half, if they get the ball there, even like just bring it out to like the 35, right, or the 30,
well,
or
if
like
he catches
20.
it in the end zone and he nails it, you get at the 35.
So get at the 35. You don't have to go as far at the end, and they settle for a field goal. Could have been in range for a touchdown without having to use your timeout, etc. It just that just completely was a gut punch when it happened.
Special teams penalties in this one. You had a kick go into the end zone for McManus. You had a touchback by Whalen. You had a muffed kickoff return for Emmanuel Wilson. That was, yeah, of course he's sick. Special teams are contagious in Green Bay, and it's been a sickness for a very, very long time. So yeah, he caught it. He didn't catch the ball. He caught the special teams sickness that has permeated throughout Green Bay for the better course of 3 decades.
Well, we're going to get it right this week, and then we're going to get ready for Chicago, and we're going to whoop the Bears' ass. And then look, whatever else happens, you can talk all offseason about how we swept the Bears, and they can't say anything. So that's
hey, 6-0 in the division, and a division title is still very much. We don't raise banners for it.
We don't raise a banner for it.
Banners for it, but hey, that's still that's a good start. And we'll
something
see what
to look for
there
as we build. That's right. Absolutely love it. Thank you so much for the time, man. If you are so inclined, folks, make sure you sign up for the Cheesehead TV Nation newsletter. There's a link in the description of this video for you to do so. Andy and I will be breaking down and previewing the Bears game later this week. Andy, thanks so much, man.
Appreciate it, Aaron. Talk to you soon.